Welcome to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast with your hosts, Mike Randle and Gus Kearns.
Welcome in, listeners, to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast, where we're always talking everything college hoops. We hope everybody enjoyed the Final Four Saturday and the lead up to which is Monday, Championship Monday. You could have been anywhere else on the dial, but you chose to be here with us, Mike and Gus, and we appreciate that. Quick couple thank yous. Thank you to Spreaker for getting us in your speakers and in your earbuds. Thank you to Bell Jar for the intro and outro music all season and all podcast history. Mike, it's time to talk a little Final Four. It's time to talk a little Championship Monday. What do you say we break it down for the listeners a tiny bit?
I want you to know, Gus, that I did rewatch the entire Auburn-Virginia game.
Okay.
Because I was teaching CCD, as I texted you and Dr. Tony and our good friend Matt out in Milwaukee.
Right.
And they said this is like Santa sitting out Christmas. But I had to do that for my daughter. I got home and I saw the last 5 minutes.
Right.
And I rewatched the entire game. So I am prepared to talk about it. Here we go.
Can I just touch on the CCD thing a bit? You are an unreal dad. That should not go under the radar here and be excluded from the conversation. That is out of control. And I think whatever bet you're going to lay down on Monday, I'm simply going to say I think God's on your side. So whatever you're going to say for Monday, we might have some, I don't know, higher power affecting your bet. So I'm kind of with you there. I think you got some good vibes rolling for Monday.
Before you guys started going back and forth, I'm there. We're talking about Palm Sunday. I'm trying to teach about that. Okay. And
sure.
Our friend whose wife is one of the biggest fans of the podcast on the planet Earth sends me a text just to annoy me in the middle of teaching CCD. UVA really lacks offensive flow without salt. Just to get under my skin.
Is that a real text?
So I talked to him today. I said, I assume that was sarcasm. He said, yes, very good. Sarcasm. I knew you'd enjoy that.
That's a great job out of coach over there. I'm assuming that was coach.
Yes,
right?
And that's when I turned off my phone at that. I can't have it.
I love that you're teaching about Palm Sunday. But listen, it's high time right now if you're teaching CCD. I mean, we are right in the wheelhouse of that. Speaking of wheelhouse, we are in the wheelhouse of our favorite time of year. Unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, we have Championship Monday to discuss. We have UVA, we have Texas Tech, two of the most unbelievable defensive teams, and somehow in a game that is schemed and officiated for offensive prowess. We have two of the best defensive teams matching up for a championship on Monday. What do you say we get a little rundown since you did rewatch the UVA-Auburn game? Why don't we go ahead and then revisit that a little bit, because I think there's a couple of topics that we might need to discuss. No?
Yeah, let's go by half. Okay, so I'll give you my quick first half reaction, then you do yours.
Yeah.
Ty Jerome, off-balance shots, great shots. Auburn really rushing the threes, really forcing them very quick. They had an itchy trigger finger. Solid defense, Diakite with a big block, Jared Harper, you go that way, I go this way moves.
Right.
End of the first half, Virginia should have been up. They were down, I believe, by 3. So impressed with Ty Jerome, impressed with Auburn's defense. But given that they had missed so many threes, I did feel when I rewatched it at the first half mark, Auburn was had an advantage over Virginia at that point.
Here's my takeaway on the first half. Number one, I felt like Auburn settled for a couple of those threes that you mentioned. They could have gotten those anywhere in the shot clock that they wanted, and I felt like they went early, which I understand they want to push pace and get a shot up early to kind of push the pace and get the game in their favor as far as tempo-wise. So I get that point. But I also felt like the shot selection was a little bit poor. Number two, you mentioned Ty Jerome. One of the things we talked about on the Patreon podcast was one of the prop bets of the over-under.
Oh, you nailed this. You totally nailed this. Oh my!
I think it was like 13 points, and I think he had 13 points at half.
Yeah, it was tremendous. You nailed it.
And the key is he's going to hit a couple threes, and if those floaters go in, which they did, that's what's going to happen. And he's going to have the ball in his hands in those crucial late shot clock situations, and he executed, for the most part, take the end game situation out in the first half. He executed in that late shot clock situation to perfection and kind of play the exact same way that UVA would like to play and how Coach Bennett would like to play. Here's the other thing, too. The pace of play definitely spoke to UVA in the first half, even though Auburn went ahead and tried to jack up. And one of the other things we talked about on the Patreon podcast was how UVA was going to defend that 3-point line to the tilt and maybe make some sacrifices with some short twos, maybe some elbow extended jumpers, and maybe some opportunities in the paint. And that's what happened too, but Auburn did not get away from that 3-point shot, and they attempted to push their style of play on the game in the first half. So that's where I was at with that. And I felt like, kind of draw. I felt like just even. I didn't feel like anybody had an advantage. The shot selection was in Auburn's favor. Pace of play was in UVA's favor. So really the second half was going to be like, okay, is the pace going to get pushed one way or the other? Or are a couple of those 3-pointers going to fall for Auburn? And that's really how the game played out and how the second half was going to be determined.
I saw Braxton Key in the first half do a couple nice things. I would have liked to see him get more run in the second half.
A little bit more, right?
Yeah, and no Jay Huff is bewildering to me. But second half, pretty much, and listen, we'll stop before we get to the end, which we can talk about for goodness knows how long.
Right.
The run by UVA was impressive. Jerome had a couple that rattled in, but he was the man. He was on fire. I'm not going to say, he was lucky to get him in. I'm not. I don't, a lot of people said that. I don't think so. I think Jerome was the best player last night. He was solid across the board, and you're going to get those rolls. I did think rewatching it when that run happened, it was over. I did. I thought it was over. And then I'll stop there, turn it over to you, and then we can get into the last couple plays.
Here's luck. I was lucky enough to have my daughter hanging around. We were let her stay up late, of course, for this, and watch everything and make sure that she got an education on college basketball. And the thing I said over and over again when they were up 10 with about 2.5-3 minutes to go, I go, honey, they can't blow this. If they blow this, they're going to be hating themselves. Everybody's going to doubt. They can't do it. And then boom. Look what happens. They're down 2 with under 30 seconds to play. So that lead that you would think a 10-point lead against Virginia and that defense is kind of like a 15-point lead against anybody else during any other time of the game. So the fact that Auburn clawed their way back and actually took a lead with under a minute to go there was unbelievably impressive. Might be one of the most impressive things in the tournament, and unbelievably what a great job by Coach Pearl. Unbelievable job by the staff, by the roster, and their roster's depleted. Kiki, they're trying to figure it out without one of their best players. I cannot even believe they clawed their way back. That part might be the most impressive part of this game, even before we get to the ending.
So the score was 57-47 on a Jerome 3 with 5:24 left. From that point, the scoring was the following. Samir Doty made a free throw. Bryce Brown made back-to-back threes. Purifoy makes a jumper. Then Bryce Brown makes his third 3 right there to put him up 59-57. Here's my thoughts on the end of the game. Auburn is up 59-57. They're turning up the defense. Virginia is self-destructing. They cannot run and get a shot for anyone besides somebody coming off a curl 3 off the baseline. They look disastrous. I think Jerome took a terrible 3 with 30 seconds left from top of the key.
He took 2 terrible threes in the final minute.
Because they can't do anything. Because they cannot run anything. They do what they do. We're going to run to the baseline. We're going to zigzag up. This is where they have to do something different. And I think they have players to do it. McLemore, who's a 60% free throw shooter, cans them both. They're up 4, 17 seconds left.
Did you see what he mouthed on the foul line when he was taking those free throws?
Didn't he say that's good after the second one? On the second one, I thought I heard that.
I think he said for Kiki or for Chuma. He referenced his teammate. I think if you do a little lip reading, he just had faith that was going to happen. Even though that you look at his shot, it's slightly broken, but those two were pure, and I think they were pure because of the vibe and the what was happening with that roster and that team. And before that,
Virginia and Auburn didn't have a lot of fouls at that point, and that's not something you can ever get on them about because they were playing great defense.
Right.
Key fouled, Kihei Clark fouled, Diakite fouled, McLemore, he goes. Now, this was the critical point. You are up 4, 17 seconds left. You need to stop, and the game is over.
Correct.
Stop. Kyle Guy pops out to the 3-point arc, which he should not be able to do. You should switch all screens. And I believe it was Doty, I'm not sure, whoever it was, put his hands behind his back on defense. He was so afraid of fouling that he put his hands behind his back and gave Guy a wide open visual look from 3, which Guy made. Kudos to him.
Tough fadeaway corner three.
Right, really tough. But put a hand up. You're not going to you can't be afraid of everything. You have to play Herm Edwards to win the game. Put your hands up. He didn't put his hand up.
Distraction, something.
Anything. Just let's put it, arch it backwards. After that, Kihei Clark fouls Harper. Harper makes the first one. By missing the second one, and it was all this stuff. It's all this stuff. So you have McLemore as a 60% free throw shooter, makes them both. Harper misses one.
Whose money misses one. Yeah, misses the second one.
But that changes everything because now you have to defend the 2 and the 3.
Correct.
I don't want to hear anything about the double dribble on Jerome. I don't want to hear a thing about it. Who cares? It didn't affect anything, because they were still in fouling mode. It's not like Jerome double dribbled and then hit Guy for the game-winning 3-point shot. He got fouled after that, and they had to take the ball out of bounds. Was it double dribble? Yes. I don't think it's a big deal. It was sort of an awkward thing. It went off his foot. It was weird. Honestly, that is sour grapes from any Auburn fan. It's a total ancillary thing. If you're going to nitpick that, how about the foul on Kyle Guy a minute earlier? I don't want to hear about any of that garbage.
Right.
I thought it was totally overblown. What about you?
I felt like this was the most ironic part of the tournament. We have been complaining, you, I, listeners, general public, everybody has been complaining about the amount of times that they have gone to the replay for whatever call it is. And for this one, they couldn't do that. And this was like, this could have been one that would be game-changing. The possession would have been turned over. So the fact that they couldn't go to the review for this particular one just seemed very ironic. Here's the other part, too. I think, does he pick it up with one hand? Is it a double dribble? I don't think so. And also, everybody was so focused on when the next foul was going to be called because they, like you mentioned, they were looking for that next foul to be called there. I think everybody's attention was there, including the officials. I don't even think they were paying attention to that at all. I mean, and if you go back by the letter of the law, how about if we poll, 100 of our listeners? And do you think that they're going to know that rule flat out before the feedback and the kickback from last night? I'm guessing maybe 65% of our listeners know that.
I totally agree with you, man. I totally agree.
Not everybody.
When I watched it, I said, that was weird. But was I ready to blow no, they were still fouling. It wasn't the last play. They still had to take the ball out of bounds. Enough. Right. And then the last play, I'm credit Tony Bennett. It was a brilliant play. Kyle Guy screened for Diakite. They were going to lob it. That wasn't there. Screen the screener. Should have switched. They didn't. It was absolutely a foul. If he had let the ball go, I would not have wanted that called. But it affected his shot. It hit him in the side. You have to call it. And Kyle Guy nails all 3 free throws. And by the way, Gus, they didn't even hit the rim.
So just to get to the foul call there, absolutely have to call the foul there. It is a Carson Edwards redux. It is the exact same foul call just on the other side of the floor. You have to allow the person to land. If you don't allow him to land and you interfere with the landing, it's a foul. So as casual or as not like a slap on the wrist or something that you would think would be a foul at the YMCA, letter to the law, you have to call that foul. I get it. It's the exact same call against Carson Edwards. And Kyle Guy, greater than Carson Edwards, he hit all 3. Unbelievable job. And hit the third one after the timeout where he tried to do the ice the kicker thing. If I'm Coach Pearl on the other side, you know what I want him to do? Live in the uncomfortableness on the foul line to try to think about that third one. Not give him a chance to reset and be like, okay, let me go to the sideline, let me get some good pub and positive self-talk for my teammates and for my coaching staff so I can go out and hit this third free throw. Let him live in isolation on that foul line for that third shot. That's what I would have done there. I know you got a game plan and try to get your squad ready for that 0.6 seconds left and diagram the best play that you can get out there. I get that part, but also I think it wouldn't have been the worst thing ever if you left him in isolation on that foul line and let him think about it a little bit more in real time. I know you got to call your play there, but I think the reset button actually helped Guy there.
I don't think it's even the call on the play. I think he just tried to freeze him because he was in such a zone. I mean, those two went down, didn't even hit the rim. Yeah. So I think like he could have called timeout after he made the third one and then called the play. I think he just said, I have no chance here. If I don't at least try to break this up, he's going to put it right through. And he did anyway.
I think the opposite. I think I just sort of let him live there a little bit and let him, just occupy that moment. That moment, I'm not pretending that I've ever had a moment like that, but like, I could imagine that moment on that stage where the game is literally in your hands. A trip to the championship game is in your, man, that's heavy. That's really heavy. I'd let him deal with that weight.
And then we go to the second game, Texas Tech, Michigan State. Start with the first half. It was 23-21, lot of defense, lot of missed shots. They really did a nice job on Culver. It's the second game in a row now that Culver has struggled. I kind of think he's due for a breakout game. Gonzaga held him down. Michigan State did. Texas Tech, a lot of one and dones on the backboards, which was tremendous. And Tech up 23-21. I was impressed in the first half. I felt like Mooney recognized that, obviously Sparty is so good defensively that
great. I'm just going to jump in and say great call here.
Someone's got to penetrate,
nailed it.
It wasn't Moretti's not getting in there. Francis is okay. Edwards is okay. No one's attacking the basket. So Mooney with his size, and I think that's a big factor here, was just getting into the middle of the key for that fadeaway jumper or the kick out, because they really went a long period of time without scoring, and they were so focused on Cassius Winston, and Ward gave them really much nothing. Obviously he's hurt. I get that, but there was nobody on the bench. Gabe Brown, the clock struck 12 on him with the threes. So really, first half, what do you think? Defensive battle galore, 23-21. Whoever got the under was happy.
Yeah, again, better. So whoever took the under was very happy there. Here's what I took away from the first half. This was just like a slugfest. They were just like shoving at each other, pounding on each other, trying to find like that crease or that avenue where something could happen. And guess what? Neither team gave. Neither team revealed any sort of weakness in the first half. I thought that maybe Michigan State would find a couple of opportunities on the offensive boards and get a couple of steal a couple of cheap possessions there, a couple putbacks. But I'll tell you what. Texas Tech was up to the task. They closed out, and they closed out on defensive boards in a big way here. I thought that Michigan State would have a couple of opportunities there, and that they did not exist. They did not, all of those opportunities that existed against Duke just evaporate against Texas Tech. Unbelievably impressed with Texas Tech defensive effort here. But I'll tell you what, Michigan State matched it. It's not like they ran away from it or shied away from it. They just said, okay, this is the game. This is the way the game's going to be played. We're in on this type of game. Let's do this. And to be honest, I don't know how you felt in the first half, but I just felt like that first half was the truth for Michigan State. If they weren't going to shot make, then the roster limitations they have due to their injuries were going to be exposed in the second half, and that's kind of what happened. So where are we at with as far as your take on both teams? Yeah,
same thing. And the second half, again, Chris Beard has made so many great halftime adjustments.
Yeah.
I'm convinced, and this is very smart of him. He came in and said, we're going to have to deal with Winston. Okay, so we got to get up on Winston. We got to try to make it him and work for it. He was 4 of 16 from the field. The other player he absolutely had to eliminate, and he did, was Kenny Goins. Yeah. Because Kenny Goins was on fire. Kenny Goins, 0 points, 0 of 4 from 3-point range, and those are the only shots he took. That's Tariq Owens and Norenz Odiasi are playing their role so well right now.
It's ridiculous.
They do what they do. I love the alley-oop play to start the game that they missed there. Basketball is a thing of beauty when everyone's doing their job. No one's trying to do too much. And they took Kenny Goins the hell out of this game, leaving it with Henry, Tillman, and Matt McQuaid. I'm good because my mom says I'm good. And listen, he had 3 threes. I get that. But I'm sure Beard was saying, whatever McQuaid's going to do, we'll live and die with it.
We'll live with that, yeah.
And it was their last gasp. You were right, Gus. You tweeted out about the whole thing about how they were extending on the 3, which I thought was great.
I know that that's what they do, but it was noticeable. Every possession, every pass, every exchange of possession on the offensive end for Michigan State was being contested, no matter where the ball was being placed. They were playing with such aggression and did not care about, and I just thought that, like, okay, at halftime, Izzo is going to make a couple of backdoor, like, adjustments, and then they're going to get a couple easy baskets that way. But that didn't happen. That didn't materialize at all.
They got up 50-38, and I give Sparty and Izzo a ton of credit because they got it back down to 52-51 on a Henry made layup with 2:55 left. I do feel, we were talking about this on Action Network earlier, I agree with this. It's 54-51. Culver puts a basket in right after Henry scores, and McQuaid misses a three from the corner just barely. 152. That was it. Because Culver made a free throw, then he made a three, it was over. That was it.
Yeah,
but
that was the shot. How about that? Not only was that the shot, that was the possession.
That was a possession. And listen,
that was the possession. They needed they needed a free throw, they needed something positive to happen from that possession. And again, going back to just what you said before, if you're Coach Beard and you're willing to live with McQuaid taking a contested three, guess what? Great possession for Texas Tech.
And great job by Izzo. The fact, I know he's 2-6 now in Final Fours, which is going to frustrate him, but the fact that you get to the Final Four when probably your leading scorer, Winston, has passed him, but if Langford had stayed the whole year, he probably would have been first or second or close. Losing him in the Big Ten Conference, as good as that was with Purdue, everybody else, Michigan, to get to the Final Four, kudos to you. Great job. Texas Tech rolls on, and Gus, it was very telling. Texas Tech goes in that locker room. There was no celebration. And Beard comes in and puts up one finger and goes, we got one more to go. And that's where I think we should get to next.
I'm gonna close on one other thing here, too. And I know we talked about Culver a little bit. Culver was one of the primary defenders on Winston. Culver is long, 6'5"-ish. Some people say a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter. Maybe he falls into like the Zaire Smith situation where they thought he was a little bit longer. Whatever, regardless of what you think of his measurements. The fact that he forced or helped force an All-America player, Cassius Winston, into a 4 for 16 day, 2 for 8 from three-point land was the reason they won this game. Culver didn't need to score a single point in this game. He needed to force the best player on the opposing team into the most difficult day, one of the most difficult days he's had this year. I mean, has Winston scored less points in 16? Oh, yeah, sure. Of course. Was he as efficient? 4 for 16 screams inefficient. And it screams inefficient because Culver was an absolute monster on the defensive end. And I think, just looking forward, if we're going to play a little fortune teller here, we like Culver, we like his offensive skill set, we like his length. But he's a true two-way wing, where he can defend multiple positions, i.e. point guard here, or i.e. shooting guard or small forward moving forward. Culver's interesting. He's kind of special, and I think he showed that not on the offensive end here. Late game situation, yes, he did show that. I mean, he was the man the final 2 minutes. But defensively, he was really, really impressive. I was impressive with every single thing he did on the defensive end. I was impressive with his footwork against, the shorter, quicker, semi-quicker, Winston, and his length, and just, he eliminated those windows that usually exist for Winston. And Winston did not operate with the usual efficiency that he does. And that's why, he's the reason they're in the Final Four. Winston is the reason they're in the Final Four. And he just eliminated all the advantages that Winston had all season and all tournament.
AP first team All-American, and he should have been, was absolutely one of the top 5 players in the country this year. AP first team All-Americans, Zion, RJ, Cassius Winston, Grant Williams, and Ja Morant, Gus.
You're going to find a tough spot to argue there.
I think it's good, and I think Winston deserves to be there, for sure.
Yeah, of course. Winston played out of his head this whole entire season. And with, like we talked about with the injuries that they've had and all the other things that have affected Michigan State, he was the man and dragged them to a Final Four. No problem with that first team at all. No problem at all.
All right, so national championship, here it is. We've had this journey from the beginning of the year. The night we wait for, one shining moment. I can't wait. Virginia, favored by 1 over Texas Tech. What do you think, Gus? Handicap it for us. Cavaliers, Texas Tech, Red Raiders. Take the under?
Take the under, please.
117.5 is the under.
117.5?
Yeah, so that's so 60-57, you win.
Listen, I don't know if anybody's going to be really excited about watching that, like if you're like just a pure basketball fan. Here's the first thing I'll say about this particular matchup. in a year where so much of the game has been facilitated and propagated for offensive efficiency and offensive opportunity, it's amazing that two of the best defensive teams are playing for the national championship. I would have not predicted that. I totally had Gonzaga in the back of my mind, like playing for the national championship because they were so efficient on the offensive end. Maybe you want to throw like a Duke in there just because they were so efficient with twos, something of that nature. But when push comes to shove, we're dealing with two of the top defensive teams in our sport, not just like this year, but like, historically. Like historically, UVA is one of the top defensive teams that we're going to see via the Ken Pom era. And Texas Tech is playing out of their head and I think currently ranked number 1 in Ken Pom via defensive efficiency. So the fact that two defensive teams, even though the laws, the rules, and the violations are skewed for offensive efficiency, I find it unbelievably ironic that these two teams are playing for the national championship. So let's just get that out of the way first. And I think that's really cool. And I think that's something to kudos to the coaching staff.
Pete Thamel had an article up today, which I liked. And then one of our followers attacked me for saying, how dare you like this? The article was talking about how, here, I'll pull it up right now. It was basically talking about how this is going to be a trend and you better watch out because it's going to continue. And they used a phrase that he didn't like very much, and he thought that I was liking that. And I wasn't. What I was liking was the fact that I think this is a trend, and I'm very happy about that. It's nice to see defensive teams actually moving forward. The national title game is generationally unsexy. The brands are duds, there's little star appeal, and the pace will be brutal. Here's the worst part. This is what the Final Four could well look like in the future. I liked that from Pete over on Yahoo Sports. I didn't like it because of what he wrote. I like it because I think defense is back. And I think this could be a trend here that you have to actually be able to play half-court defense. That's what I liked about it.
And here's the other part, too. This isn't the NBA. You don't have players all over the court that can, stretch the floor. You have your Jared Culver, who's an NBA player, and then you have a couple of other pieces. You have your Ty Jerome, and then you have a couple of other pieces. Kyle Guy can stretch the floor. Kieh Clark's a nice player. But there's not the talent all over the floor that creates a 137, 136 game in a 48-minute game. That doesn't exist. So, the other part to pay attention to this too is, I don't know if Pete Thamel mentioned this in his article. I'd be lying if I put my eyes on it the same way that you did, Mike. Are we gonna celebrate some of these coaching staffs for coaching up their players for multiple years? That's the other part about this too. All 4 Final Four teams have experience on their side. So as much as we want to celebrate Zion or RJ or whoever the freshman of the moment might be, all of these teams have been through the ringer and been through the system. The system works. The system works for the college basketball schematic. So Texas Tech, Chris Beard, great job. UVA, Coach Bennett, great job. You schooled your guys the right way. And maybe the schooling is going the opposite trend. Maybe the schooling is going a little more defensive than it is offensive in the college game. And I'm cool with that. I'm cool with a 65-63 game. I'm good with that.
And so getting to this game, I don't see a chance. I am so locked in on this game. I told you 6.5 was way too much, 6 points given to Auburn. I thought it was nuts that Michigan State was favored over Texas Tech. There is no chance that Virginia is winning this game. None. Unless Moretti gets, all of a sudden the flu, or Matt Mooney is arrested for shoplifting tonight. Something weird.
They're not in China. Don't worry.
Something weird happens like that.
Right.
A, you beat Virginia by slowing them down. Texas Tech is going to slow them down.
Right.
B, they're not going to make mistakes in the half court. They're not going to struggle coming off a baseline staggered screen. They're not going to not play Jerome to his left as opposed to his right. They're not going to forget to box out inside. So their athleticism is going to really bother Virginia. And Virginia is going to struggle inside against these big guys. They're going to struggle to contain all 3 of those players. They don't have a match for Culver. It's got to be Hunter. Hunter could get in foul trouble for that. Right. This is the type of team. There is no way Virginia's winning it. I don't see it happening. Kudos to Tony Bennett, but Texas Tech is not going to be fooled. You're not going to get open looks like they did against Auburn, who actually did a decent job. Texas Tech is more athletic. They can rebound. Beard is an excellent halftime adjustment guy. If Texas Tech is up at the half 4 or 5 points, good night, Irene. Because if you put Virginia, like Florida State did earlier this year, you put Virginia in a situation where they got to catch up. They just don't have the horses to do it because either Bennett's not going to extend, or if they extend full court, they're going to have to start playing defense that they're not used to. So Virginia's got to control this game, and I don't think they're going to. I think that they will shoot better than Auburn did from three because they're just a better three-point shooting team. Owens and Odiasi. Owens is fine. He had the little limp, but he came back in the game. And you know what? For one game, put the boot on strap. You'll be fine. So I think it's an easy pick. I love Texas Tech in this game. I would give 3 or 4 points, and I'm getting 1. That's my call. I think the Red Raiders cut it down on Monday night.
All right, well, we're on the opposite sides of this. Well, let's, podcast listeners, let's have fun with this, shall we? All right, Mike, what's been the bugaboo for UVA? And we've mentioned this on the podcast multiple times. What is the thing that they have the most trouble defending? Guard that can penetrate. Guard that can
penetrate and get in the lane. Yes.
Yeah, and create and like, all right, who's that on Texas Tech? They got anybody that does that specifically?
Honestly, I think Mooney's going to get in the lane.
All right.
Great. I think Mooney got in the lane against, I think Cassius Winston. I think Mooney's going to get in the lane against Ty Jerome. I do.
Okay. I don't think so. I think the complete opposite. I think that they don't have like Virginia's kryptonite. And you mentioned like Culver and Hunter. By the way, this is huge. Like NBA scouts are going to be paying unbelievably close attention to this because both of these guys have been mentioned like in the lottery or you know, some sort of first round pick. Some people have like Culver as high as like 3 or 4. Some people have Hunter as high like as 7 or 8. Like this game, they're going to be matched up against each other. So depending on where you are with like your Culver, Hunter greater than, less than matchup, that's where this game is going to go. If you feel like Hunter can limit Culver on the offensive end, and UVA has proven that they can win without Hunter having a gigantic offensive game, he's going to, you know, do his thing and get his double digits. But if Hunter can limit Culver on the offensive end, where else are they going to go for scoring? Is Mooney really going to match his season high of 22 against one of the most historically great defensive programs and teams in the history of college basketball since the Ken Pom era has started? Is that really what's going to happen? Are we really banking on that? I'm not. So I'm on the complete other end of this. You think you feel so confident about Texas Tech? I feel just as confident about UVA in this situation. And here's the other part. The other thing to pay attention to is the Tariq Owens and Diakite matchup. What's your greater than, less than value there? Do you feel like either one of those guys is going to influence the game positively or negatively on the offensive end or the defensive end? I can see Diakite getting a couple putbacks. I can see Owens like deflecting a couple shots. Depending on what way you feel like that matchup is going to go, then that might determine the outcome of the game as well. I'm going to lean slight, and I mean the slightest slight in favor of UVA in both of those matchups. And I think because of Diakite's slightly greater than Owens and because of Hunter's slightly greater than Culver, I think that gives UVA some sort of 3-4 point win here. And I think they do the same thing they've done the last couple games. I think they like somehow stumble on and discover a magical way to win this game. And by the time we're done with this thing, we're going to be celebrating like, wow, that was a really special game to watch. I don't care that it was 57-62. I was really blessed to watch this particular basketball game because college basketball is awesome whether it's played with a defensive mindset or an offensive mindset. So I'll tell you right now, listeners, you need to make up your mind. Are you going to trust Mike Randle, fresh off the Action Network, or are you going to trust Gus and his UVA slightly greater than matchup here in this Monday championship game? I don't know which way you should go, but I think you have evidence and I think that you have clarity for both sides. So make up your mind and make a good choice. Mike, what do you got? The
only argument I can entertain in my mind, I don't think that Hunter's better than Culver. I don't think Diakite's better than Owens. I haven't seen that at all.
We agree to disagree.
You're dealing with a Virginia team that we sat in the Meadowlands FanDuel Sportsbook at halftime.
This is true. This is true.
I can't believe this. We're dealing with a Virginia team that was in a whole world of trouble against Oregon, a 12 seed that is brutal offensively. They couldn't stop Amin. They couldn't stop Pritchard. You're dealing with a Virginia team that with 13 seconds left, down 3 against Purdue, Ty Jerome is just zigzagging back up the court, taking his time, and it takes a miss that he claims he didn't miss, which he should have missed on purpose, right. And Kihei Clark hitting Diakite just to get to overtime. And then we're dealing with a Virginia team that plays Auburn and is dead to rights and the game is over, and Kyle Guy makes threes. The only thing I'll entertain is Team of Destiny, Magic, all that
Karma.
stuff.
Yeah,
Texas Tech has won your Gonzaga team that you loved and talked about how efficient, all-time efficiency, how great this team is. 25 points for 19 minutes in the second half.
It's true.
Against Rui Hashimura, who they didn't have a matchup for. What are they going to struggle with? Kyle Guy? They're going to struggle with Ty Jerome? They're going to no, they've seen it all. They've seen it all. They've defended it all. I get it. I get the magic carpet ride thing, Team of Destiny. Listen, Texas Tech goes minutes without scoring. I understand that also. I just think their athleticism's too much. And as I said on the Action Network podcast earlier, take your Team of Destiny, turn it sideways, stick it up your fanny in honor of WrestleMania tonight. I don't see that happening. It's very hard for me. And I love Virginia. You and I have been talking about the Tony Bennett Redemption Tour. I'm just being objective. I can't see them winning this game, and they should have lost the last 2.
We got the final tour stop that we were hoping for the Tony Bennett Redemption Tour.
And he deserves it.
And he made it to Championship Monday. I think he's got one more trick up his sleeve.
We'll find out.
Yeah, we will find out.
We'll find out. So, but you would take the under also at 117.5.
I would definitely take the under.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. I definitely would. But yeah, I think we're on opposite sides of how the game will turn out. And I'm okay with that because I like to agree to disagree, especially with Mike Randle.
Well, this is perfect. I mean, we're here. Pick who you follow, folks. You got both sides. One of us is going to be right. You just got to figure it out.
Who do you trust more, listeners? Who do you trust more? Mike, do you just want to give your quick 2 cents? Musselman to Arkansas. Are we good with that? Are we okay with that? Is that a good hire? Where does Nevada go next? Do you have any take on this? Just, 2 cents.
Let's see. So the conference in the country that has top to bottom the best coaching staff.
Legitimately.
I don't think it's close because Old Miss was supposed to finish the last day of Kermit Davis.
Right.
So we can get into Cal. By the way, they may need a coach at Tennessee soon because I'm hearing Barnes may go to UCLA. So that'll be interesting. But
they should hire Lon Kruger over Barnes.
Top to bottom here, you're adding in a guy who doesn't design plays, who doesn't believe in disciplining his kid. Give him freedom. I think he'll recruit fine, and I can't wait to bet against them every single game next year. I can't wait.
I kind of hope that you're
gonna get
That's awesome.
He does an X and O. He does an X and O in the SEC. Okay. Well, then you need to recruit like Coach K does. And if you do that, it's not your win. It's our win.
Our win.
But you know what, Muss? It's not going to be your loss. It's going to be my win. So don't worry about it.
How about one of our faves? How about Mike Young going to Virginia Tech?
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Just fantastic, right?
Oh, so happy for him. Great hire. Fantastic hire. They went from the outhouse to the penthouse. They were talking about Kevin Willard. And they got Mike Young. Oh, my goodness.
That's kind of where I was going to go with that. I was going to say they were talking Willard, but they went Mike Young. How happy are you for Virginia Tech?
Oh, I wanted to go because I was going to fade Virginia Tech all year next year. But that's fine.
And then I think the other part, we mentioned this a little bit, was UCLA. They're toying around with both Barnes and Kruger. Gun to your head, do you have a preference there of where you would go?
It depends.
I do.
Well, Kruger's a much better X and O coach. There's no doubt about that. Barnes can obviously recruit, and I think Barnes was a little undersold in Texas. They'd like to have a Final Four run right now. Wouldn't you think that? They won the NIT. It's great. Okay, it's a consolation prize. But
right.
The problem is we know you need an X and O guy to win at big level basketball. Correct. UCLA, with the sun, the fun, everything, they want recruits. So I think they're going to lean Barnes and get the recruits, and then we'll see what happens. It's the Pac-12. Barnes has done a real nice job in Tennessee. So I think, I don't know. I mean, I like Lon Kruger's X and O. He's taken 4 programs to the NCAA tournament. It's fantastic. Correct. Kruger's the better coach. Barnes is probably a better recruiter. So I think they're going to go with Barnes. But who would I like better? I'd like Kruger.
If you're hiring Barnes and you're UCLA, you're hoping that he hits on one more Kevin Durant. You're hoping that he gets that guy to come into your program and blow it up, and then has it, whether it be Lonzo Ball-ish, right? If you're UCLA and you're going to hire Kruger, can't you just see him finagling his way into an Elite Eight or another Final Four? Maybe without the Kevin Durant-ish type player. So I think it depends on where are you with UCLA? Do you want the star? Do you want the comet flying through the sky for one season that Barnes has delivered in the past and probably can do in the future? Or are you going to go with the let me see if this sneaky, great, underrated coach can get us into another Elite Eight or Final Four with maybe a roster that's undersold.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about picking Zion first over John Moran. I lost you for a second. I'm sorry. Oh.
We'll get to that
plenty
later.
Of time for that. Absolutely.
Total plenty of time for that. All right, listeners, we'll end it here. Listen, please don't forget to give the podcast a follow at SES Podcast, Efficiency of Keystrokes, of course, on Twitter. Don't forget to give Mike a follow at Randle Rant. He is insightful, entertaining, and a riot all in one nice, tidy little package. If you really like what you're listening to, and you've really liked what you're listening to all season, and we just want to say thank you for the people that sent out the nice comments and reviews out on iTunes. Totally cheers, cilantro, gotcha, love you guys. Don't forget, on your podcast consumption vehicle of choice, leave a nice review. Leave a nice review for Mike and myself. Leave a nice review for the guests that we've had on, whether it be, we had Amir Feda on, we had John Rothstein on, we had Aaron Torres on, we had Kevin Connors from ESPN on. Leave nice things about them. We've worked really hard to give you guys great listeners throughout the season, and great guests throughout the season. So maybe leave a nice review about that. And then I guess the last part is, Mike, we just want to say thanks. Thanks for letting us keep you company during March. It's been a riot. It's been fantastic. We've really enjoyed it. And we're humbled and we're honored that you guys give us some of your time during, a busy month when the clocks are changing and you're trying to figure stuff out. For the seasons that are changing, and maybe you have families. And so thank you for giving us some of that valuable time to help us keep you up to date and sound smart at the water cooler or at work or with your guys or with your girls or with your teams or with your squad. So thank you for that. We're really honored, and it's kind of humbling on our part personally.
Can't wait for Monday night, folks. We'll see you.
Can't wait for Monday.
I'm addicted to the appetite. It's a